So you might have heard of these chemicals that are called neurotransmitters. And there are more than 100 types of neurotransmitters. But I think the most well-known are serotonin, dopamine, endorphins, and adrenaline. What these neurotransmitters do in the body is that they communicate between different cells by sending chemical messages from one neuron to another. And our bodies are made up of these large networks of neurons or nerve cells. So neurotransmitters help to get the message from different nerve cells in order to, for example, move your limbs or to get your heartbeat going or to regulate your appetite, your sleep, as well as hormones, for example, and the stress response. And the messages travel from one neuron to another by an electrical impulse, and depending on the kind of neurotransmitter, a certain type of action follows. So why is this interesting to know? Well, these neurotransmitters also influence how happy we are or feel. And the cool thing is we can influence this ourselves to a certain amount. And we can do this by taking medications, for example, but we can also do it in a more natural way. So in the following part, I want to discuss 4 different types of neurotransmitters and see what happens if the levels are low and what we can do ourselves to increase these levels in a natural way. So the first one is serotonin. And serotonin is a neurotransmitter and it's a hormone. And what it does is that it regulates our mood and our general well-being. And it's also involved in other functions like, for example, memory and sleep and appetite and learning. And what happens when the serotonin levels are too low is that we can start feeling more depressed or more anxious, or we have trouble falling asleep or remembering things. So what can we do to increase those serotonin levels in a natural way? So the first thing you can do is that you can try to eat foods that are rich in tryptophan. And tryptophan is an amino acid that the body uses to convert this to serotonin. So if we eat foods that are rich in this tryptophan, then our serotonin levels also increases. And foods that are rich in tryptophan are, for example, salmon, nuts, spinach, but also oats and eggs. And I also read this research that claimed that if you eat these tryptophan-rich foods in combination with carbs, then it's easier for the body to convert the tryptophan to serotonin. But I don't know this for sure, so yeah, I don't think it can do any harm. So yeah. The next one is exercise, and I think we all know that exercise is good in order also to feel happy. Not all kinds of exercise make us feel happy, I think, so we have to choose something that we like to do, because also if we dread exercising, it won't really work. But I think we can all pick something that we kind of like to do. And I also read this research again that said that especially the aerobic exercises are really good for this in comparison to, for example, strength training. You can think of running or swimming or biking. And I also read that you should be exercising for at least 30 minutes or around 30 minutes, because at the 30 minutes mark, the serotonin levels were at the highest. And then the third one is sunlight. And I think we all know that after a couple of very dark and gloomy days, we all can feel a little bit depressed or a little bit anxious or moody. So it's not really weird that daylight is really important in the production of serotonin. And nowadays I have the feeling we all get a little bit scared of sunlight, as it could lead to skin cancer, but I think moderation is key with everything. Exposure to UV is really important, because if we are exposed to UV, this helps the production of vitamin D in our body, and vitamin D is really important again in the production of serotonin. So it's important to get this into your routine, to go out every day, especially when you work at the office the whole day and you don't get a lot of natural daylight. And sitting near the window is not enough, so you really have to go outside to get exposure to the sun. So try to incorporate this into your daily habits. Okay, and the second one is dopamine. And dopamine is involved in feeling pleasure and reward. And what happens if the dopamine levels are really low is that we can feel, a little bit depressed again or anxious, but also really unmotivated, or we can have trouble with thinking, or we can have trouble with our mobility or muscle stiffness. So it's also involved in a lot of functions in our body. And what we can do to increase those dopamine levels is to do something that we like to do. So we want to activate these dopamine circuits in our brain, actually. And we want to do it in a natural way. And what we can do is, for example, we can listen to music we like, or we can write music or produce music. We can meditate, or we can do some yoga. And that's also good for the serotonin levels, by the way, as well as the dopamine levels. And I also read that drinking coffee is good for the dopamine levels, so I was really pleased to read that. And again, moderation is key here, and I think we all know that. So drinking 10 cups of coffee a day, of course, that's not really good. So don't overdo it. And lastly, sleep is an important one here. So getting enough sleep is really important to get those dopamine levels up. And the third one is endorphins. And these endorphins are released when you're doing some kind of activity that you like. And that can be exercise, but it can also be, for example, having sex or eating. And these endorphins can help to relieve pain, reduce stress, and improve your overall well-being. So the nice thing is that these endorphins are a natural painkiller that we have. And if you have low endorphin levels, you can feel very moody, you can have higher levels of pain and aches in your body. And again, it's also related to feeling more depressed and anxious. So what you can do to increase those endorphins is exercise. Exercise is really the main thing to increase endorphins, and I think we all heard of the runner's high, for example. And this is caused by the endorphins that are being produced by our body at that moment, and that makes us feel good. But also I read that eating dark chocolate is really good, and watching a TV show that you really like and enjoy, eating spicy foods, going to the sauna, or getting aroma therapy. So they're all quite nice things to do. And the last one is oxytocin, and I think we all heard of this chemical, and maybe some people know it as the love hormone as well, or they also call it the cuddle hormone. And that's because this hormone is important in bonding and feeling connection with someone. And if you have low levels of oxytocin, then you can feel a bit depressed, but you can also feel a little bit less empathetic towards other people. And I also read that low levels of oxytocin have some kind of correlation with people experiencing social phobia. So I thought that was quite interesting. What can we do to increase those oxytocin levels? And I think we already know, the name itself already says it, is that it's important to form a connection with someone, and we can do that by cuddling or having sex. And what you can do to increase those oxytocin levels is, like the name already says it, is to cuddle or have sex or getting a massage or giving a massage. But also like stroking a pet is good for increasing those oxytocin levels. And just doing a bonding activity with someone else is good. Or the feeling that you belong to a big group. And again, exercise is also important in increasing those oxytocin levels. So I think after discussing these 4 neurotransmitters, that exercise is like the main thing that we can do to increase all the neurotransmitters that are important in feeling happy. So these were 4 different neurotransmitters that we just discussed that we can influence ourselves to feel a little bit happier or feel a little bit less depressed or less anxious. So I think that's quite interesting that we can have, that we have some control over it ourselves. I hope you found this video helpful and that you learned something, and I hope I'll see you next time. Bye.